Welcome to the Mixing It Up podcast by your host Sam Showering. We're joined today by Sam Thackeray, who's the CEO of Amber Beverages, ex-MD of Inotria Wine Cellars, the wholesaler, and also Iain Peebles, head of hospitality and all things Hippodrome Casino. And we're just going to be talking about general industry chit-chat amongst ourselves. And we've got some nice drinks here. What have we got here?
Yeah, so we've got it's called a vacanza, which is a sort of dramatic way of saying, I think, holiday or day off in Italian, but essentially it's as an Italian summer spritz with the Luxardo is the brand, which is a fantastic kind of heritage Italian brand, over 200 years old. But yeah, it's an aperitivo, and it's a bit of a sort of twist on the classic kind of spritz, because we're using grapefruit soda and a little bit of triple sec as well. But so it's I don't like something too sweet, so it's kind of like, it's got that little bit of bitterness, but then the grapefruit as well helps accent that. So cheers.
Cheers, chaps.
Cheers.
Is this the perfect serve?
I think so. Well,
That's
I mean,
good.
it is in my diminished capabilities within this studio, yes. I mean, I think you could have it you probably have it in a slightly better, more exciting glass, and maybe a sort of fish bowl or something a bit more exciting. Delicious. But yeah, with a grapefruit slice, and I think so.
And the Luxardo cherries, I could easily do a punnet of those.
Well, that's our second drink, but yeah, theoretically, they're coming. They're delicious, aren't they?
Yeah.
The maraschino cherry is a real classic, and not used enough, I don't think. But yeah, it's the most, and it's a classic kind of. It should be in every kind of cocktail bar in the country, really.
You should get it everywhere. Service stations, anyway.
Anyway,
yeah, I'd happily have them all the time.
I'm down with that, but yeah, they're seriously yummy and amazing over ice cream, which is what my kids are now.
Noted.
I try not to give them too much alcohol, but the maraschino cherries, they can get involved.
There's no alcohol
You've
in
had
that.
that jar for breakfast.
Yeah, no, actually, it was actually open like yesterday. It's had ice cream with it. It doesn't go so well with they're having like fish food or one of those Ben and Jerry's ones, but it's probably better with plain ice cream. But yeah, it's good.
And Iain, I haven't done justice. Hippodrome Casino just sounds like a casino. It's not a casino. It's got a theatre. It's got how many restaurants?
Well, we've got one. The main restaurant, which is the Helio Steakhouse, and then we've recently opened a Chinese restaurant downstairs, which is Chop Chop. We've also got a crepe restaurant out the front, which is on the street, and we serve food right throughout the building, pretty much all day.
I mean, to listeners here, to give you some scale of it, these guys get around 40,000 people through the doors over what period?
Over a week.
Over a week.
Yep.
It's a phenomenal place.
Yes.
Phenomenal, monstrous place. Amazing.
Well, it's a 24-hour business. The busiest hours are between 10 in the evening and 2 in the morning. So having that footfall outside Leicester Square as well assists. But it's a lot of fun. It's a great space to work in,
and a great heritage space. If you get a chance, if you listen to this and you go to the Hippodrome Casino, check it out. It's got Harry Houdini's straight jacket he used on performance there at the Hippodrome. It's got Audrey Hepburn's jewels that she wore at the Hippodrome. It's a super cool. It's packed full of history. Yep. Packed.
Yeah. Well, it opened in 1900 as a circus. So basically, it's actually two buildings that we've joined together. So it's Cranbourne Mansions, which face onto Leicester Square, and then the theatre itself, spread over six floors, from the lower ground floor, which is our entertainment space down there, right up to the rooftop, which we opened just after the dreaded lockdown. So it's come on really well.
And you've had Magic Mike showing recently, haven't you?
We had Magic Mike arrive with us in 2018. And it's doing phenomenally well. Channing and the Magic Mike team have been great supporters of the Hippodrome, and it continues to sell out week in, week out, and 10 shows, awesome. 3,200 odd, predominantly young ladies coming in to see the show. But it's certainly added a different edge to a building of entertainment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And at the Hippodrome, what would you say has been the most popular sort of drinks activations, brand activations at the Hippodrome?
Well, we haven't really done that many. We did a whiskey one up on the rooftop, which we paired with Johnny Walker. We've done pretty much wine and champagne collaborations as well. A lot of the stuff. I mean, beer is quite a big seller for us, but spirits and cocktails are probably second category.
Presumably that Magic Mike crowd is pretty cocktail heavy.
The
right?
Magic Mike crowd are cocktail heavy. When we first started doing some research into the show, we actually went out to Vegas to look at the show there, and they had a sharing cocktail, and it's this huge bucket with a straw and a lid.
Yeah.
And it's 1 3/4 pints.
What's the lid for?
To try and keep the ice and the liquid in when the boys are running around the show. Well, obviously the UK audience don't share anything, so they're actually drinking those themselves, not sharing at all.
Brilliant.
So that they are the biggest.
So designed to share, but everyone's just having one.
Absolutely.
Hats off to UK consumers. That's
Yes.
how it's done.
Absolutely.
That's how it's done. Yeah. Sorry, LA, but we've nailed it over here. And with those activations, you know, sharing cocktails at Magic Mike, surely there's the next big activation to do. It's got to be coming, because casino. All I can think of with casinos is Casino Royale, James Bond, Martini, playing cards. You know, what's the next big one?
That I don't have the answer to. I mean, I'm sure there is something out there that we can work on and build, and then getting people to try it. I think activation's all about people trying it and getting it out there.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, because I think you've had this kind of quite depressing period of time in the UK economically, and also as a result of COVID, where a lot of people have been at home and then sort of remained at home, and there's been a sort of a flight to safety in terms of brands, and there's been a lot of supply chain issues around that as well. So people have sort of retreated to things they trust and feel safe, but they are still going out. But when they go out, they want a real kind of cool experience, or something that's kind of more theatrical or a bit different. So you've got an opportunity, I think, as for probably lesser known brands, so then to tell your stories and talk about the heritage and link that to the venue and things like that, which I think is interesting, because people don't necessarily want the same thing that they've ordered to their sofa and had at home for 3 years, or that kind of squeezed middle you've seen of people at the moment, and those restaurants and bars that are sort of just churning out the same old big brand stuff. It's not very interesting for people, I don't think. So you need to link activations to storytelling. Interaction with staff, I think, is really important as well, so they can engage people and say, yeah, you should try this and it's cool, and then people feel that they're getting a bit better value for money, and they're then happy to spend.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a common denominator on the show here. It's just people time.
Yeah.
People speaking to bartenders engaging with brands. And we talked to, I want to talk a little bit about, what do staff really care about, even at the Hippodrome? What do they care about in terms of staff incentives? Because, we see people giving you win a bottle of something for whoever sells the most vodka or whatever it is, pornstar martinis, and you get a bottle to take home. But does that really excite people, or is it the staff trips, the distillery tours, the learning about the brands, speaking to people? What are the kind of the most successful things?
Well, I think you've nailed it. It's the latter. It's not the free bottle. It's the staff training, of which we've got a few coming up today, Friday and next Tuesday, and the staff are really enthused about that. They like telling a story to customers if they ask. They're not having the confidence to sell something. The trips and things are important, even if we're so close to Europe. Doing a day trip to Italy or Spain or France or whatever is doable, or even just an overnight. Getting a group of people out from different areas of the building. For me, if you take someone from the restaurant, the bars, even the kitchen, because the kitchen can use bits and pieces that they want to use in desserts and things like that. If you can get people out there, cherries, exactly. You can get them out there, and they then feel part of that brand.
Cool. And Luxardo offer? Can we go see some cherry trees?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing.
Luxardo, and I was actually just there a couple of weeks ago, because they built a museum to celebrate their 200th anniversary, but that was supposed to launch in 2021, still in the heights of COVID fun. So it's just been opened, but it's fantastic. So you can see the distillery, you can have a tour around, do a big tasting, see the museum. But yeah, they absolutely do that, and it's situated just outside Padua, which is the most beautiful town. And you fly into Venice, and you can do a day trip in Venice. So the whole package is fantastic in a sort of 24-hour, 36-hour period. But you get real, So I think it's really important you try and bring consumers and staff as close as possible to the end, the end product or the initial product. So that whole kind of just understanding the provenance of a brand, and there's this huge family history, having an amazing brand, having the quality, just understanding the whole package is really cool. And Luxardo is really interesting because you normally have, and I say this with a bit of caution, but you normally have something wrong with a brand, like either it looks really cool, but the liquid might not be great, or the heritage story is really good, but the product itself doesn't look terribly good. There's often, it's a bit like buying a house. You always sort of compromise on something. The reason I love Luxardo, because I don't think there's a compromise on anything. It's just got fantastic products, whether that's aperitivo or limoncello or sambuca or whatever it is. But their sort of fruit business is just as important as their alcohol business. But yeah, it's very cool.
Interesting. What is the split, out of interest, if you're allowed to say?
I don't actually know, because we don't do the sort of food. So they do things like, the essences and stuff like that for cake making and pastries and all that sort of stuff. So that's done by a different business. But I think in Italy that accounts for significantly more than the alcohol element. And it's absolutely enormous in its home country, obviously. But
is Italy the biggest seller for Luxardo?
Yeah, it's home. It's home business, yes, for sure.
What do the serves look like? Are they always consistently the same from Italy across the water to here?
No, I don't think so. You tend to have a different. There tends to be a slightly different palate. You tend to have the Italians tend to have a slightly more bitter palate in terms of what they enjoy, and products like Amaro and things like that, which are absolutely enormous in Italy, are still pretty nascent in terms of people's understanding here. We tend to have a slightly sweeter tooth, and cocktails as well tend to have a slightly younger demographic, and actually the sophistication of your taste buds over time tend to start sweeter. It's like when you start drinking as a teenager, you tend to like Alco Pops and things like that, and the tip of your tongue, it's almost like lollipops. That's why you like lollipop, because your sweetness sensitivity is on the front of your tongue. You tend to develop and prefer bitter flavours as you get older. Yeah. But the UK probably isn't that. I don't want to use the word not sophisticated, but it just has a sweeter profile of flavours that it likes. Yeah,
that's so interesting, because I've actually got a little bit of experience in this. Not really, actually. Third party experience, where my family were big producers of WKD in the day, and I used to make it as well in the tank house. I used to get blue hands from the blue coloured dye. I looked like a Smurf, at least from my hands. I looked like a Smurf for a while. And it was super interesting how even when I was making it, people were drinking it because it was an interesting thing to drink. But as we kind of got a little bit older, people were switching to fruit-flavoured ciders. So you've gone from a clear bottle, relatively cheap-looking product, you have it at student unions, etc. And then you're kind of moving on to that kind of brown bottle, paper label, as you're kind of growing into a more premium occasion. You're drinking a little bit less of them. No one's going to have... You might have 10 WKDs, but you might have, 5 flavoured ciders. But you're trading up, you're going to spend a little bit more. And then, where is the next occasion from these guys drinking fruit-flavoured ciders in their sort of mid-20s, moving on to sweeter flavoured cocktails, and then gravitating towards, the Vacanza?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, moving on to it. I mean, I think it's that bitter taste profile that people kind of growing into in the sort of millennial department.
Yeah, for sure. And you're seeing that just with cocktail development as well. And you saw the growth of the Negroni and things like that. So we're getting a bit more. Yeah, that profile moves, but you can definitely see demographic movement with that, and that applies to all sorts of drinks, whether that's wine as well. People tend to get a more, again, I don't want to use the word sophisticated, but you tend to appreciate the sort of subtleties and that bitterness a bit more as you get older. Just that seems to be the way it goes. But that trend, you need to sort of bring people on a journey, because you obviously want customers from when they're in their 20s right the way through till they're old. So. You need to have a range of products that will work for each sort of demographic. And also, I'd be really interested to hear this specifically from you. Coming from you're MD at Inotria, right? And then you move to CEO at Amber Beverages. MBK, Do you have to move? Did you come with a plan? Did you have, or do you sit down? Do you make the plan afterwards? You've got to have. I had a bit of a plan, because we actually have 2 businesses in the UK. There's Amber, and then there's indie brands as well. Yeah. And the plan is very much to bring those businesses together. And Amber has the sort of scale and sort of works a lot with probably national accounts and larger multiple accounts, so the supermarkets. And then Indie, I suppose, is a bit more insurgent and works with a lot of independent shops, and then sort of premium on trade. And probably a bit more urban, so you kind of got the best of both worlds in terms of channels that you're working with. But it's 2 quite different cultures, so the plan is to bring them together. So I did have a bit of a plan, yes, but there's quite a lot of listening and yeah. In fact, I had a very detailed 100-day plan. Obviously, it goes out the window on sort of day 2. It's a very exciting business, very ambitious business, and it grew actually from originally it was the production business globally for Stolichnaya. but having made product for our sister company, then became a brand owner and developer itself. Realised that we could make our own brand. So it's quite acquisitive, and we've got lots of quite cool things. So we're not only this is a third-party brand that we distribute, but we also make our own brands too.
Can you say that again? Stolichnaya?
Stolichnaya.
Stolichnaya. Okay,
Stolichnaya.
for everyone that's listening, it's Stolly.
Stolly.
Because I think that's how we know it. That's how we talk about it in the UK. It's Stolly.
It is Stolly. Well, and it has actually. The rebrand is about to come to fully to Stolly, which is good. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Because it's actually all made. Again, it's a bit like there was with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there was. A bit of issue for a few vodka brands, certainly in terms of their perception. But ours it's Latvian sourced. All the product is from the EU, so it's very much a Baltic product and heritage, not Russian, which is important, I think, at the moment, or depending on where you are globally in the market. But yeah, it's exciting. But we have really cool agave, and our owners bought agave fields in tequila, so there's a distillery there. We've just bought some really cool Irish whiskey. So there's some really exciting brand ownership as well within the business. So when you say did I have a plan? Yes, and it's sort of enhance our own brands, sell more of our third-party brands, and just bring these two cultures together to make a bit of hopefully a UK powerhouse.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to drag you back to the sharing cocktails with the lid. How does the lid work?
Well, we dispense to the lid. We don't use the lid.
No lids anymore?
No lids in the UK.
Okay.
I don't think the Americans are
it's
using
it's like a big sort of goldfish goblet right now.
Yeah.
But it's sizable.
What goes in it?
Well, we're about to refresh it, aren't we?
We're about to have a look at some of the cocktails that are available on the show, because the cocktails in the show are also available in the Penny Bar, which is the first floor bar.
Very cool.
And then we have Permission, which is a separate cocktail list, very much tied into Magic Mike, where you can go in and have absolutely beautiful cocktails in there. You go through to the show, come out, have your same cocktail, because we want a bit of consistency. So those cocktails in the show and the first floor are available through the building. Yeah. All the floors have got their own separate individual cocktail lists.
Right, I get it. So if you're a site with multiple bars, which there are many of, by the way.
9 bars.
9 bars is a lot, but there are many venues in the UK, especially in London, with multiple bars, right? And they've got different cocktail menus on each one. So would you say it's about having, say, 30% of each menu as a consistent couple of cocktails that you can get everywhere?
Oh, I think you have to look at it as, if you're looking to serve the customer has to be able to have the same drink wherever they want to be. So you give them the option of these cocktails are available through the building.
Yeah.
And all the bar teams know that all the ingredients, they can make them done. And then the bartenders on those individual bars have created their own cocktail lists.
Got you.
And I say cocktail list, there's 5 Magic Mike cocktails available through the building, and there's probably 6 or 8 on each individual bar that those bartenders have created themselves.
Got you. I love it that you give the autonomy to the bartenders to make their own cocktails. Yep. So which just speaks volumes about getting bartenders and brands engaged, and speaking to the brand owners themselves, and getting these these trips away to go visit where the brand comes from, what it's all about.
Well, Salvo, my GM for the restaurant, is also the head of wine, and he pushes a lot the wine sales in the building, and they've just come back from Prosecco, landed in Venice, all of that, but the guys have come back to do some work with that, and it's exactly the same as working with the spirits that we've got coming on board, that they can go to those places, understand how it's all put together, come up with ideas, and then build a new cocktail, or enhance an existing cocktail, and then work together with the producers, the suppliers, and everything else. So it just all brings everyone together.
Sorry, I'm just making drinks here. They don't normally let me loose with this, so it's quite exciting. But the interesting thing about the Magic Mike cocktails is that they're sort of themed, to make. They're themed to be linked to the Magic Mike show.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So.
What's it called? The cocktail.
There's numerous cocktails.
There's obviously a sort of there's a porn star martini, which is kind of like I suppose an obvious link, but it's also the number one cocktail in the UK. I'm quite tempted to have one that we call Pop My Cherry, in which we.
Well,
use this.
Oh yeah.
No comment.
No comment.
Yeah.
We can run that. We can run that
Yeah.
by the team.
Well, it's better than some of the notes at the moment, isn't it? Which are even more controversial. So. Cheers.
Yeah, cocktail
Cheers.
names are fun.
Nice.
Cheers, guys.
So this is maraschino liqueur, and then Fino Sherry, which I think is Fino Sherry is one of like the great undervalued drinks in the world.
Agreed.
Absolutely
Totally,
fantastic and delicious.
totally agreed.
And then a touch of tonka bean tincture, and then a little bit of grapefruit zest, and then a maraschino cherry. So, but
Yeah.
quite a sophisticated. This is quite a sophisticated drink, but again has the nice sweetness from the syrup. That
Yeah, I hope
delicious.
sherry comes back. I hope sherry
we've
comes
been
back.
waiting for years, but I mean, it is amazing.
Yeah, I hope sherry comes back. It was such a massive category, back in the day. And actually, my family again had experience with sherry. We had Harvey's Bristol Cream was a big family product of ours, and had a big sales force at the time, and had made it kind of cool at the time. But I just don't know what happened. We've kind of gone off. Hopefully, it comes in a wave and it comes back. I really do.
Yeah, it's
a great
It's one
drink.
of those products that the wine trade, love and the trade just absolutely adore, but it just hasn't translated to consumers, and we're still waiting for that big cusp. But
Yeah, I think it comes back to the point you were making earlier about sweetness to bitterness and everything else. You get a Harvey's Bristol Cream, and then going to a Fino or a Manzanilla, it does take a little bit more understanding of the drink. I love sherry. I've always got a bottle of Manzanilla in the fridge.
Do you get
at home?
Do you get any orders for sherry in the Hippodrome?
Not many.
Not many.
No.
But you have to have it, right?
Yeah.
There's always somebody that wants a sherry.
There's
always
someone
someone.
that want a sherry.
yeah, it's magic in a Bloody Mary too, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
So,
Spanish Marys are beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just that salinity, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Fino on a hot day. I mean, how would you activate that? If you had a sherry in the portfolio, Sam, and we're speaking to Iain about getting a great Fino activation into Hippodrome, where would we go?
I think the only way to do it would be you'd have to link it with a sort of tapas mentality. So with some delicious olives or some almonds or something like that. You have to engage the theatre or the sort of memory of holidaying in Cadiz or Jerez or whatever. But that's the way that you would.
This is something out of your book, isn't it?
What
paragraph are you rehearsing now?
It is not, but something like that. So that it reminds you of that theatre, that excitement, and people going, "Oh, what are they having?" And then asking the waiter or waitress, and then I want that too. I think
The
that's how
recollection of memory is an important point, because if I was to do a sherry, I'd do it on the rooftop during the summer, and that would reminisce for me about being in the Douro on a balcony, having a Fino and tonic on ice with almonds and olives in that glorious heat.
Yeah.
We can replicate the heat and the sunshine on the terrace sometimes in the summer, but we can certainly replicate the drink, and then you can take that forward from there.
Well, why not have both? If we're talking about the Douro, let's get port involved. Get a nice ruby port on the
we're really
on the
setting ourselves
terrace.
some challenges now.
Next,
the two categories in massive decline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hospitality, we've had a rough ride with staff retention, people moving around, and obviously with Brexit and getting staff from abroad as well. What are the key things to get staff really interested and what? Because everyone that I know in hospitality, at least, the majority have got 10 years, 15 years under the belt, 20 years under the belt, and what good advice to get guys into working hospitality from sort of now to the next sort of 10 years?
I think it's reintroducing the element of fun into a lot of businesses. If you're in a bar, it's quite fun. If you're in a restaurant, it can be quite staid. I think you have to have that fun element running through, and have a laugh and a joke, because it's the camaraderie within the teams that keeps the teams together. The incentives, the learnings, the trainings, making people better people. And giving them a vision to proceed and climb up the ladder.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that would, and I think we need to attract more homegrown talent. There does seem to be an odd phenomenon that UK, potential employees don't necessarily, or they, I don't want to say look down, but they don't necessarily view hospitality as a career.
No.
So I think there's an obligation on us to provide really good training and career paths within it, which I don't think the trade has necessarily done that well in the past, so that people do get that actually this is a massive industry, as we've seen from the impact of lockdowns and things like that on jobs and the economy, and that it is a viable career path. And I'm not sure that's particularly well communicated, and people don't see it as a viable place to go. So.
I mean, all the sales reps that I know in drinks are the best sales reps because, and I tell you why, is because they get used to rejection. Because I think it's standard practice to go to visit 40 accounts a week, knocking on doors, and you get those hard rejections. I think it's circa 92% rejection rate going into a bar with a new bottle or something, trying to speak to someone, and they're learning through failings. 30, 36, 35 times a week, and then suddenly after 12 weeks they're pretty freaking good salespeople. I think that training to get to the next level, I think, is just imperative. It doesn't matter if you leave drinks and go into any kind of sales. I think it's such an important kind of passageway into anything you want to go into. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think resilience and kind of tenacity are massively important things in life anyway. But you certainly learn it in spades in this kind of industry.